Climate change, natural catastrophes, floods and wildfires, they have an increasing impact on our lives. Lloyd Europe was set up to be at the heart of insurance innovation. The team has been bringing through the best and brightest insurtechs to tackle some of the most pressing issues facing the industry. The most recent cohort focuses on climate and on cyber. Amélie Breitburd is the CEO of Lloyd Europe. Amélie will be interviewed by Matt Connoly, CEO of Sønr, to discuss the latest trends in commercial insurance. We're very pleased to have both of them here on our stage. Please welcome Amélie Breitburd and Matt Connoly.
A warm welcome to Barcelona. Warm welcome to you, Amélie.
Good morning, Matt.
How are you?
I'm feeling very well.
Good. Everybody okay? Good. Now, I've got to know Amélie over the last year or two. So we are at Sønr, we're the scouting partner for the Lloyd's lab. And I'd say, let's live up to this standard, right, Amélie? But I'd say you're a rather brilliant lady. So we've got 20 minutes to prove that out.
Pressure.
And one thing, so I heard Amélie first talk, and maybe you guys did as well, at DIA Munich, where she bossed the stage and talked about the new risks that were entering the market, the innovation and the focus from Lloyd's. And I hope today that we evolve on that conversation, we frame that conversation in today's climate, which is feeling like a bit of a different landscape out there. But the one thing I wanted to kick off with is you talked about Lloyd's as innovators, and you used some examples. And I did some research, I did some homework, okay? So I'm going to bring some things forward here. So for those old enough in the audience, I'm not sure anyone quite is, but Lloyd's were the first to insure Betty Grable's legs before those of Tina Turner's, David Beckham's, and Michael Flatley's. Keith Richards' hands, Bruce Springsteen's voice, Merv Hughes, who's a cricketer, if any cricket fans in the audience, his moustache. My favorite, Tom Jones's chest hair. That's great, right? Maybe more relevant, the first to insure car insurance in 1904, and then more recently, satellites in 1970s. And I'm sure you used some other examples which I've completely forgotten, so forgive me. But look, a 330-year-old organization been driving innovation from the off, right? The world is changing, the risks are evolving. Lloyd's appetite for innovation, how's that changing, Amélie?
So somehow it doesn't change. You've quoted a number of examples. I may add some very recent ones, and since we've met in Munich, so unfortunately, as you know, there's the war next to us. And there's what we call the grain corridor, which was opened in October. So that, all that grain coming from Ukraine would reach out, for example, Egypt or some of those countries. And Lloyd's was there to insure those ships, out of Odessa to the rest of the world. So indeed, the world is evolving every day. There are new risks every day. You would think that we love it. Actually, we don't love war. We don't love the additional floods. If you think about 2 years ago, I mentioned that in Munich, and because it was Germany, the floods in Germany, in the Netherlands and in Belgium, that was more than 10 billion losses. And just a few weeks ago, we had more or less the same in Italy, again 8 billion of losses, and only half of them, even less than half of them were covered. So we live and breathe by risk, and the objective that is actually doesn't happen. And as an organization, so this is where we need to have innovation and take bold, and some people would say it's almost bets. And the difference between bets and insurance usually is that insurance is driven by statistics. We have laws, that if you think about motor, which is less of what we do, so we have statistical laws. That's a fish law, by the way, if you're interested. If you think about life and death, so we know very well how to model it. And I must say that even with COVID, so we were prompt to change those statistical law. The type of risk we work with are risks where actually we need to have scenarios because we don't know, we don't have statistics. So we need to build those models to then try to guess how risk is going to behave, and we build those models. And this is where we need data, and that's part of the innovation part. We need creativity, imagination, sometimes on the gloomy things, trying to plan for the worst. And then we also need to find those solutions which will help us prevent these from happening. And that was my point about risk, that we don't strive having new risk, but we are there to model them and then try to prevent them from happening. And then if they happen, then we're going to pay those claims. So this is what this market is so special about, is that every time there's something new, we are there to then try to test and learn. We are conscious that this is something which is over the very long term. So if we think about some of the new risks, as you've mentioned cyber, we issued the first cyber policy in 1999. So it's barely a bit more than 20 years. It's very young for us, usually 300 years of data. And this is where we started by modeling scenarios. And every day that passes, the nice thing about cyber is that it's a man-made risk, which means that it's about not modeling nature, or it's modeling human nature, actually. And here, trying to forecast how this human nature is going to evolve is actually quite difficult. I was mentioning the war in Ukraine, so trying to plan for that war, we didn't know about it. Then it happened. Then we had the Russians and the Ukrainians. They split within the hackers teams, and it took them 6 months to split, do a kind of, spin-off,
sure,
as we would say in the economy, and then rebuild their own companies. So it's just showing that all of this is what we try to do. Try to always be there and adapt our models, so that which are scenario-based, and then we adapt our pricing. But I think the main message for you is, like as we said in Munich, we can't do it by ourselves. So that's another characteristic of that market, is that we have lots of different pieces, different people who are contributing to that market so that it's a success.
So maybe we can take that. And so because you work with a great big marketplace, which I'm sure is delightful, but also a huge challenge in itself. What are the needs of that marketplace, and how are they changing? So we've alluded to the changing risks and certain areas that you focus on, and maybe we can expand on that a little. But what are the changing needs of the clients that you serve as well?
So indeed, the market is changing, and the customers themselves are now really thinking about risk prevention. Mm-hmm. I'm part of a board, and I can see that within the boardrooms, people are looking at risk in a different way. So probably 2008 from a financial perspective, but now with all those risks emerging, how to manage those risks is part of the boardrooms. And then, because we are dealing with most of the time large customers, they now try to anticipate that a little bit better, and they want us to partner with them and also be there over the long term, because a risk may occur, within the next 10 years. They need to plan for it, and also the number of years they're going to partner with us is going to change. While insurance was seen as a bit of a commodity, you change every year. They like to partner with us on a longer number of years. And for example, energy transition is a key topic. This is where they need insurance, and we are there to plan with them that insurance. But this is where they need innovative solutions to tackle those risks, because in their own models, they need to show that they are mitigating those risks. And this is where innovation is at the heart of what they do and at the heart of what we do as well.
So let's come on to that. So we're here at InsurTech Connect, DIA Europe. Probably, I don't know, hands up those representing startup, scale up, that side of things. So maybe a third of the audience. What is the relationship for Lloyd's as an innovator with that marketplace, right? So obviously we're incredibly close to the Lloyd's lab, and we see that connection. What is it that InsurTechs are bringing to you at Lloyd's?
So I think the parallel with waves was bang on. That's exactly what we see. is that initially it was more about disruptors. And as we've said, we are a disruptive market, so we liked it. But this is where we've seen the way we partner with startups evolving. And I think we have, if I look at the years of the lab, we've experienced all those 4 waves of trying to then partner with those startups in a bit of a disruptive way, how to bring that disruption, and then moving to partnerships. And I think those 4 waves, the way they were illustrated, absolutely reflect what we are living, which is that now we've moved from disruptors to this ecosystem.
Yes.
And so we host innovation. You've mentioned the lab. We have 2 cohorts per year. We welcome more and more participants. It's not only for those who make it to the cohort, because we also have all those events throughout the years where we welcome participants to join, so you can be somehow part of that ecosystem, even though you've never been part of one of the cohorts. Because we have this iconic building in London, notably, this is a place where we have all those events and you can pitch and reach out to us at any point in time, in addition to apply to those 2 cohorts a year. And also the thing is, as it all started in London, but it's the same with the lab, it's expanding. And you've mentioned that, so we are Lloyd Europe, we are based out in Brussels. We're going to have an event in July where we're going to have 10 startups pitching, both some which are part of the current cohort and some alumni. And this leads me also to another point, which is we have that ecosystem of alumni, and as time went by, then there's more and more of them, and they are part of our journey with customers. So kind of looping back to one of your questions, which is how do we partner with customers? We're looking at organizing workshops with some of the customers, then bringing them around the table with some of the alumni, and then work on specific problems that they face, and try to have those alumni working on those the solutions. So you can see that even since the beginning of the lab, it all evolved, and this comparison with those waves was exactly what we experienced.
And the assumption, it's more than an assumption because I know, right? But you're aligning up the insurtechs with those risks that you're seeing come down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've mentioned floods, for example, in Italy. So one of the startup of the current cohort is working on this. So floods, that's obviously one of the big issue, what we call perils. And we can see those second-tier perils. So we have first-tier perils, which would be, the big one in St. Andreas at some point. But now we are facing more occurrence of second perils, and we need you, the startups, to work on those new types of perils and floods. So that would be one of them. So cyber, obviously. You've mentioned satellites. So thanks to satellites, we now have much better view of what's happening down on Earth, and maybe one day on Mars, and if you think about also those rockets flying into space. So, but then it's illustrating also the gap that we have between innovation, where we would have people who know how to those satellite imagery work, and then we have claims handlers, and they know how to manage claims, but those claims handlers, they don't know how to, look at a satellite picture, and we need translators. And that's exactly the type of innovation that we need to have. It's this link between those claims that we're going to have or we try to prevent, and if we have, if you think about a parking lot, and suddenly there's like a big fire and none of the cars are there the day after, we would have, thanks to those satellites, the pictures of all those cars, and we can know exactly which one were there. We would know also better what was the source of the damage, and then we can also pay claims much quicker, which I think is a pain point. And also we learn a lot from all of this. But this is sometimes a language thing where incumbents don't know how to deal with that technology. We have Airbus, who's producing those imagery on a day-to-day basis, and then we just need people to link to make the link between the two. So that's a good example.
So then it's not only the technical capabilities of the insurtechs, but also seemingly a talent gap that they're bridging in that translation role.
Absolutely, and talent is exactly what we need. And so people who have great ideas, obviously, and we were discussing this, it's also bridging, basically, we have the money, and you have the brains. It's not that we don't have any brain, but and we are reconciling the two. But it also means that those talents are people who can think about the future. They are able to identify those needs, and then we are there, because we are a marketplace and we are not an insurer, we are there to convene. So that's exactly the role of the lab. It's to convene all those talents and make sure that those who have great ideas can then dialogue with those who have the money and those who can distribute the solutions. And that's what the Lloyd's market is. It's somehow slicing and dicing what you would have in a traditional insurance company. You have the people bringing the money, the previous British lords, and now money is coming from lots of different sources. And then you have the people pricing, and then you have the people bringing the data, and then you have people selling the solutions, and then we have the customers. Or we start with the customers, and then we go up the value chain in a different way. And that's what we do. We convene all those talents together, but obviously we need people who can think out of the box, who are not in our day-to-day job, to then bring that innovation to the market.
If we look at the world, so maybe a challenging question to you, but if we look at the world and the new risks, the evolving risks, those risks that we haven't even thought of today, which will be here tomorrow. So I look at this protection gap, and the chaps on the intro video, they alluded to everything from kind of micro-insurance to whatever it be. Can we keep up? I look at this kind of growing divergent separation in protection. How do we innovate? Maybe this is the better question. How do we innovate at a pace that is sufficient for the changing world around us? Because that's a tough gig, right?
It is tough, but I'm a very positive person, and you need to be positive when you work in insurance. And I thought that the cartoon was also very a great one when you look at your life and protecting yourself in a wheelchair. And I'm probably one of the people in the room who's the closest to the wheelchair. But still, I'm very positive because we have that experience of those 400 years. And then we could see that we were able to face all those challenges. So my message to you is very positive about all those risks. It's fine, we're going to manage, but indeed, this is where we need to work all together. And that's where listening, we were talking about a bit before, being able to listen to people. We need to listen to each other because we all have our experiences around those risks, and it's only together that we'll bring those the type of innovation that we need. And what we've seen in the past is that every time there's a new risk, yes, we need to learn, but human beings have endless resources. And we've seen that we've been through COVID. I mean, the vaccine was invented just in a number of weeks, and then it needed a bit of testing. So we have, I think the good thing is that over those almost 400 years, we have a very good track record of that innovation, which always found solutions. Yes, we have the feeling that there's more and more risk. It's part also of the fact that we have more and more data. And that's probably what is changing, that each individual now has more and more data of what's happening everywhere.
And greater insights as a result.
And yeah. I feel it's positive. I love it. We were exchanging views like in the 19s, how you were trying to cope with the fact that you had no data. So I love the 21st century. For me, having that access to data and even more people is great. I was just alluding to the fact that in the 90s, if you in insurance you wanted to have data, you needed to have access to Sigma, which was a Swiss Re book, and just grasping that book, which like the physical book, was a pain. And then trying to find those who had written that book And then who had the data and the modeling was even more complex. Today, you just go on LinkedIn. So for people from my generation, it's an accelerator in terms of innovation. That's why I'm very positive. Now, you just need to find the right person who's thinking about it. And if those people are not thinking about it, you need to advertise that you need to find solutions on a problem. And this is where those events are absolutely great, because that's the place where we're going to talk to you about our problems, and you're going to solve them.
Amélie, I think if I look at the clock down there, ITC crew, just so you know, if you're on stage, you can't see the countdown clock. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. A huge thank you to Amélie. Great positivity from Lloyd Europe. And thank you very much for joining us for this keynote this morning. Amélie, thank you.
Thank you.